Howdy folks, and welcome back to War Thunder with the mighty Jingles. Just got back from America. You've had 2 World of Tanks videos, you've had 1 mammoth World of Warships video with the new German premium Tirpitz battleship, which should be on sale, at least in the EU gift shop today. And I thought, you know what, you've all been patient, today I'm going to do a War Thunder video. This is Hans Heartbreak, and he is flying the Soviet Ilyushin-28 twin-engined medium jet bomber. It's a realistic battle on the Korea map. And the enemy team consists of nothing but lots and lots and lots of Western jet fighters. There's F-2 Banshees, there are Meteors, there are Vampires. And Hans's team is stuffed full of jet bombers, so this is going to be interesting. So, it's a realistic battle, it's going to take them a while to get to the target area. Let's have a little talk about the Ilyushin-28, the Soviet Union's first really successful jet bomber. At the end of World War II, the USSR was lagging severely behind the West in jet aircraft design, and Joseph Stalin had made it very clear to the various heads of his design bureaus that the Soviet Union was going to catch up as soon as possible, or heads would roll. Beginning in 1945, the experimental design bureaus, under the direction of Pavel Sukhoi, Andrei Tupolev and Sergei Ilyushin, began to work on the first generation of Soviet jet bomber designs. The Sukhoi design never really got off the ground. The Tupolev design came up with a jet-powered version of the Tu-2, but purely as a stepping stone to something better. Meanwhile, the Ilyushin Bureau came up with the Ilyushin-22, which was kind of a scaled-up, bigger version of the German Arado 234 jet bomber. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good. The Soviet-designed engines were, well, pretty bad, basically. The machine was underpowered and it suffered from a very, very limited range. It was such an obvious loser that they didn't even bother to submit it for trials. The biggest problem was that the Soviet Union just didn't have turbojet engines with enough power at the time. And in 1946, a bunch of very highly placed aviation officials went to Stalin and suggested that they just buy British turbojet technology. This led to Stalin's famous response, "What fool will sell us his secrets?" But he approved the negotiations anyway because he didn't really have anything to lose, and everybody was very surprised when it turned out that the British were the fools who would sell the Soviet Union their secrets. The idea of the British selling turbojet technology to the Soviet Union seems ludicrous, and it was widely criticised at the time, but the sale went ahead anyway, and it went ahead for a couple of reasons. It seems strange to imagine it now, but while the Soviet Union definitely regarded Britain as an enemy, the British didn't really regard the Soviet Union as an enemy right after the Second World War. There was still a lot of sympathy in Britain for their old ally against Hitler. There was also some sympathy in the British government. In fact, the British government at the time was a socialist government with distinctly communist leanings. The aviation minister at the time was very, very sympathetic towards communism, and was very keen to push the sale through, not least of which because Britain was almost bankrupt. Right after World War II, Britain was on the bones of its arse. It was struggling to repay the war debts that the USA insisted Britain repay, and was suffering from particularly poor relations with the USA at the time. Not least of which because while the USA was insisting that Britain cough up and pay its debts, it was pumping billions of dollars of aid and reconstruction money into Japan and Germany. Understandably, the British were a bit pissed off with the USA at the time, and so American objections were largely ignored. And just about the only thing Britain had that it could say was better than anybody else in the world, and therefore able to sell, were its jet engine technology. British jet engines were the best in the world. It would be decades before the USA caught up. But they would catch up. However, at the time, Britain had nothing else to sell anybody, so the sale of a couple of Rolls-Royce Nene jet engines went through to the USSR, much to Stalin's surprise. The British government did make one pretty pathetic attempt to appease America. It insisted that the Soviet Union not use the engines, or any of the technology derived from the engines, in military aircraft. It was literally a case of, okay, we'll sell you some jet engine technology, but as long as you only use them in civilian aircraft. And of course the Russians said, "What, put the engines in military aircraft? Oh, perish the thought, comrade, the very idea had not even occurred to us. Here, just sign here." So the sale went through, and the very first things the Russians did with them was stick them in military jet aircraft, and then refuse to pay for them. Wow, who saw that one coming? Oh, Britain, you so silly. Russian jet fighters at the time, like the MiG-9 here for example, were pretty bad. The MiG-9 was powered by the RD-20 turbojet engine, which was basically a straight Soviet copy of the BMW 003 engine, which powered the Heinkel HE-162, the Arado AR-234, and was used as a test engine in the Messerschmitt 262. It just wasn't good enough anymore. But as soon as the Soviets got their hands on some Rolls-Royce jet engines, they wasted no time whatsoever ripping off the technology and making their own copy of the Rolls-Royce Neon engine, known as the Soviet RD-45, seen here in the LA-15, the engine that also powered the infamous MiG-15. And when Sergei Ilyushin got his hands on them, he wasted no time putting them into his brand new medium jet bomber prototype, and the Ilyushin 28 was born. It was a very good, simple, tough aircraft, a good example of Soviet design engineering. It was easy to build, it was easy to maintain, and it was easy to fly. It was made mostly of aircraft aluminium alloy. It had a very long oval section fuselage. The fuselage was split lengthwise and built in two halves that were fitted together like a plastic model kit. Landing gear clearance was very good, which reduced the likelihood of foreign object ingestion into the engines and also made rearming the bomber easier. It could carry a single 6,600 pound bomb, but the normal warload was 2,200 pounds of bombs in the internal bomb bay. Gun armament consisted of twin fixed 23mm cannon in the nose and twin 23mm cannon in a tail turret, with the tail guns aimed by an optical gun sight. The tail turret featured armoured glass and steel to protect the tail gunner. Some sources do claim that the IL-28's tail turret was copied from the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. The Soviets certainly had the opportunity to copy the B-29's tail gun. One B-29 was captured by the Soviets when the crew got lost when flying from Japan straight over the Soviet border and were forced down. The crew were returned to the USA, but the B-29 wasn't. That's not to say, of course, that the Soviets didn't waste any time copying the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. They did. That's what the Soviet Tupolev Tu-4 was. But the tail gun turret was an indigenous Soviet design on the Ilyushin 28. It was, in fact, the very first Soviet-designed electro-hydraulic turret. Ammunition supply was 100 rounds per gun in the nose cannon and 225 rounds per gun for the tail cannon. The aircraft had a crew of three, a pilot and a navigator bombardier in a forward compartment and a tail gunner radio operator in a rear compartment. The two compartments were heated and pressurised using engine bleed air, while the crew were also provided with an oxygen system. There was, however, no way to get from one compartment to the other in the flight. The pilot and the navigator had upward-firing ejection seats fitted with armour. The tail gunner got into the tail turret through a hatch directly beneath the tail. Since the tail fin blocked the use of an ejection seat, he had to bail out on his own through the tail hatch. However, it did open forward to provide a windbreak and make escape easier. Meanwhile, back in Korea, Hans Heartbreaker's team are not doing particularly well, and probably not surprisingly, his team are 50% Ilyushin 28 bombers, and the enemy team are 100% jet fighter aircraft. So, while Hans here has taken his Ilyushin 28 on a long loop around to approach the target from the south, let's take a look and see how the rest of his team are doing. The other two IL-28s on the team did not take the long way around to the target. They went straight to the target area, they got the first strikes of the match, and they of course are about to get the attention of all of the enemy fighter jets. This guy, I think, yep, he's expended his bombs, and now he's making strafing runs with the nose-mounted 23mm cannons on various different ground targets. Here's the other IL-28. He's dropped his bombs, he's returning to base to rearm. He should be relatively safe. You can see a couple of friendly fighters in the air above him. Meanwhile, back there, the other IL-28 is about to run into trouble. Here's the LA-15. You can see the MiG-9 in the distance over there. The enemy jets have been spotted, but they're not in immediate range of... Oh, wait, hang on. No, not the MiG-9. Somebody has just spotted a couple of enemy jets, and it's the first IL-28. Now pay attention to that F2 Banshee up there. We're going to be seeing more of that guy later. So there's the first casualty. Meanwhile, back to Hans Heartbreak. He's still on his approach to the target area. He's flying high, he's circling around, he's staying well out of the way of any enemy interceptors, and he's only beginning to turn now to make his attack run. Brings the aircraft around. Switching to the pilot view here, he's using the virtual cockpit, putting it into a steep dive. The IL-28 was designed to travel to its target at speeds of 800 km per hour. It will go faster than 800 kilometers per hour, but you run the risk of ripping the wings off, and you're going to see Hans Heartbreak here exceeding the maximum advised speed on a number of occasions. But that's going to happen later. For now, he's climbing into the bottom layer of the clouds here. He's using every trick in the book to try to mask his approach from the target area. His approach from the target area? Sorry, his approach to the target area. To keep him safe from those enemy jets. And it looks like they've just lost one of the MiG-9s. An enemy Banshee has nailed one of the MiG-9s. The MiG-9, of course, powered by the old, I forget the exact model of the Soviet engine, but they were essentially copies of the BMW 003 engine, captured from the Germans after the Second World War. They were the engines that went into the Heinkel HE162 and the Arado AR234. Old technology. Pretty much outclassed by aircraft like the F-2 Banshee. Hans checking his six to make sure none of those pesky Banshees or the Meteor or the de Havilland Vampire are trying to sneak up on him. Checking to see where friendly aircraft are. Nothing around him. He should be safe from attack from above and the rear. There's a friendly aircraft up there. And he's going to be going for those light tanks on the far side of the river. Flak's coming up to meet him. You can see the kind of speeds that this thing's capable of. He's not hammering the throttle here or anything. He's not using his military power. He's just keeping the throttle open, putting it into a shallow dive. And he's going to approach 800 kilometers per hour before he eases back on the throttle and makes his attack run on these tanks. Almost there. Checks that he's lined up correctly. 8 bombs in the bomb bay. Any second now. Bombs away. Dropped 2 of them and is rewarded with 4 ground target kills. So that's not a bad start. It took him long enough to get here, of course, because he took the long way around, but he got here alive. And he got here without being spotted, so he was able to make his attack without being bothered by any of those pesky enemy jets. Like the Meteor that just shot down the other Ilyushin 28 as he was trying to return to base. So things are not looking too good here. There are only 3 of his team left. So while Hans here is coming around to make another bombing run, let's have a look and see what's going on with the LA-15 and the MiG-9, who are the only 2 guys on his team left. Where's the LA-15? Oh, there he is. He looks pretty occupied, doesn't he? We best not disturb him. He's in all kinds of trouble. There's not a lot Hans can do to help him, and the MiG-9 over there is way too far away to assist, and probably has problems of his own. Let's see what's happening with the LA-15 again. Who's on him? I see 1 Banshee. No, oh wait, there's another one. There's 2 of them back there. No, there's 3 of them back there. He's shooting at something. Is the one in front of him? If there is, I can't see it. But he's got it. He's got 3 enemy aircraft behind him, including 2 F-2 Banshees. I'm not sure what the 3rd one is, but it doesn't matter. One of the Banshees has just knocked his wing right off, and that's the LA-15. What's happening with the MiG-9? Oh, the MiG-9's actually scored some damage. And he's attacking another one. So he's engaged by 2 aircraft, and he's hit. The guy behind him, I think it's the Meteor. There he goes, he's just flown past. Although it is possible the Meteor was damaged by the tail gunner of the Ilyushin 28 that he shot down when he was trying to return to base. There's one of the Banshees. Oh, this is not good news for the MiG-9. The MiG-9 is not a terribly good aircraft. If he was the one that scored the damage on that Meteor F Mark IV, then well done to him. He's desperately trying to avoid this Banshee on his tail, and the Meteor's managed to get back on his tail as well. This is not looking good for the MiG-9, but he's not going down without a fight. He's not making it easy for them. Look at this. Look how close that Banshee's getting, and he's managed to avoid all of his fire. He's trying to... No, do a scissors. Do a scissors. Make him overshoot. He's not listening. Well, I don't know what kind of damage he's sustained. I mean, obviously, one or both of his engines are putting out a lot of smoke there. He's lost oil. The Meteor's just overshot again. That Banshee is hot on his tail. He's not shaking him. The Meteor's just going too fast. There he goes. Is he going to try? No, he's not going to try to. The temptation's got to be there when the Meteor overshoots to try to pull the nose up and put some shots into him. But it would be suicide. You just make yourself a perfect target for the Banshee on your tail, and it doesn't matter, the Banshee got him anyway. And oh, plot twist! Hans Hans has just shot one down. he's the first one on his team to get an air kill. And he's in a bomber. Oh, and there's another one there. What's that? It's the Vampire, the de Havilland Vampire. And there's at least one other aircraft behind him. You can see the tail gunner giving it. It's got to be one of the Banshees. And so the chase begins. He's got one de Havilland Vampire, and well, he did have two. He shot one of them down, and now he has one F2 H2 Banshee on his tail as well. Or at least he did have one F2 Banshee on his tail. I've lost sight of the Banshee. I'm not sure if he's still there or if he's peeled off in order to return to base to rearm and refuel. But the Vampire is not giving up. The Vampire, however, is going to have severe problems catching an aircraft like an Ilyushin 28, doing well over 800 kilometers per hour with full military throttle engaged. Now, the Vampire didn't have a bad engine. In fact, let's talk a little about the de Havilland Vampire while he's busy chasing Hans Heartbreak here, because it was a good little aircraft, and it was a very, very small and very light aircraft. And it didn't have a bad engine. It was the, let me see if I can remember correctly, the Frank Halford H1 engine, later known as the Goblin engine. And it was a better engine than the early turbojet engines that powered the early versions of the Gloucester Meteor. In fact, the Goblin engine that powered the Vampire's trials were actually delayed because there were a limited number of engines available, and one of them had to be sent to America because Lockheed were using the Goblin engine in the XP-80, which was the prototype of the P-80 Shooting Star. One of the engines had been destroyed in trials and they needed another one, so one of the few engines that was left was sent over to America so that the Americans could continue developing the P-80, and that delayed the trials of the Vampire. The Vampire was the first single-engined fighter aircraft to be used by the Royal Air Force. It was the first Royal Air Force fighter aircraft to have a top speed exceeding 800 kilometers per hour. Doesn't seem to get that in War Thunder though, does it? Not if this is anything to go by. Yeah. Funny that. Oh, there's the F2. Okay. The Vampire was also the first pure jet-engined aircraft to successfully land on an aircraft carrier, piloted by the legendary Royal Navy Captain Eric Brown. It wasn't the first jet-engined aircraft to land on an aircraft carrier, but it was the first pure jet-engined aircraft to land on an aircraft carrier. In November 1945, Orion FR Fireball, which was a hybrid jet aircraft, it also had a piston engine. It was supposed to use its piston engine during takeoff and landing, but its piston engine failed on its final approach, so the pilot started the jet engine up and performed the first jet-powered carrier landing, even if it was completely unintentionally. But the Vampire holds the record for the first pure jet-engined aircraft to ever perform a successful carrier landing. That Banshee's getting awfully close. He's got the right idea. Gain some altitude and then dive on the IL-28, because it's the only way you're going to catch it. What's going on here? Let's have a look. Well, he's not going to catch him if he keeps climbing like that. And he's just run into the map border. There's the F2. Where's the Vampire? The F2's just run into the map border. The F2 is now going to be repositioned above and behind him, significantly closer than he was. Where's the Vampire gone? There. Yep, there's the F2. He's just reappeared. Tail gunner's hosing him down. Still too far away to guarantee some accurate hits. See, the F2 is going to be a bit more of a problem than the Vampire. The F2 is a twin-engined jet fighter, and it's got two very good twin jet engines, Westinghouse J34s. But he's not really making the best use of them. He's in the dive, but he's coming down directly behind Hans's 23mm tail guns. He's still, I think, is Hans reloading? Or is he just waiting for him to get closer? No, he's reloaded. He's hosing him down again. The Banshee's breaking off. He's going into the climb again. Hans goes into a dive, gets a bit more speed up, trying to open the distance up on him while the Banshee slows down as he climbs. Hans is going to be very, very carefully nursing his engines here, because you can't just hammer the throttle open on full military power all the time, otherwise your engines overheat and they flame out, and then basically you become a very heavy glider. So there's a limit to how long you can actually operate under full military power. But that Banshee is not getting any closer. again, he's got the right idea. You've got to gain altitude and then approach, because the thing is, you don't want to get anywhere near the twin 23mm guns on the tail of the Illusion. Still no sign of the Vampire. Strange. Oh well, anyway. Yeah, you don't want to get anywhere near those twin 23mm guns. The problem being that the IL-28 is so fast that if you're chasing the buggy, you have very little option but to come into the firing arc of those guns. So there's two ways that you can avoid getting hit by the guns. Stay high and dive on him from almost directly above, or go low, get underneath him and fire up into his belly. Hans is so low that the F2 doesn't have the option to come in from below. But he's not making a very good job of attacking from above either. He's gaining the altitude. He's a good couple of kilometers above him. But he keeps diving on him too soon and ends up directly behind him every time. I'd like to know where the others are though. Well, you can look at the combat messages and see that the other Banshee and the Meteor are completely ignoring what's going on over here, and they're just shooting up ground targets with whatever ammunition they have remaining. But pretty soon they're going to run out of ground targets to shoot at, or they're going to run out of ammunition to shoot at them with. They're going to return to their airbase, rearm, and then Hans is likely to be in a lot of trouble. The Vampire, on the other hand, it's a mystery where he's gone. He must have ammunition left because he was chasing Hans. You wouldn't chase him if you couldn't shoot him down, and he didn't get a... Oh, there he is! And he's gotten a lot closer. A sneaky little bugger. I do like the de Havilland Vampire. I saw my first one live and up close at the Sky Solent Aviation Museum in Southampton. It was the very first museum visit video that I ever did. Fantastic aircraft. The one at the museum belonged to the Swiss Air Force. Is he getting closer? No, of course he isn't. Poor guy. He's got to be so frustrated. But he, you know, he doesn't want to catch up either because... Oh, there he goes. It's the F2. The F2's managed to get a bit closer. But this is the thing, you know, you spend all this time trying to just get close enough to start shooting at the tail of an IL-28, and you've got two 23mm cannons firing back at you. It's a risky business. Oh, the Illusion 28 is so overpowered, I hear you say. Well, the enemy team didn't have problems shooting the other two down, did they? The difference is, Hans is, well, he's making the most of the strengths of the aircraft. Get in quick, hit the target, and get out fast. Fly in a straight line, keep your speed up, and keep that big fat Russian ass pointed squarely towards any threat. There go the tail guns again. He's got him. Has he got him? Where did he go? No, there's no combat message. Oh, there he goes. He's in the climb. You see him? He's climbing up again. He's behind him. There goes the tail gun. Shots coming in. And he's got him. And that's not all. Have a look at the combat messages. The Vampire just crashed. Now, I didn't see it happen, but I'm guessing that what actually happened to the Vampire was he saw his opportunity while he was chasing, and he saw Hans here turning and burning and engaging with the other F2. And he thought, right, now's my chance. He put himself into a climb, gained some altitude, and then opened up the throttle and went into a full speed dive, trying to build up the speed that he needed to catch Hans while he was busy with the F2. And went so fast he ripped his wings off. I don't know for sure, but it seems kind of likely. So, Hans. Two enemy fighters left. Where are they? Oh, well, there's one of them. And that is the other F2H. But the Meteor is still around as well. Now, while I was in the external camera view here, focused on the F2, I didn't see the Meteor sneaking up. And the Meteor is not stupid either. Notice Hans starts manoeuvring here, and he's not manoeuvring to avoid the F2. Nope. That's because the Meteor is in front and beneath him. There he goes. Misses by a country mile, and there's the smoke trail from the Meteor. The Meteor is damaged. I don't know who damaged him. Possibly he took some ground fire while he was flying around killing all those ground targets earlier. But he's on the way back to the enemy airbase, which is good news because it means Hans only has to worry about one aircraft, and when you only have to worry about one aircraft in IL-28, you can keep your rear guns pointed towards them at all times. However, this F2 pilot does know what he's doing. Hans is high enough that the F2 can put the aircraft into a dive and gain enough speed to catch him while staying far enough away to minimise the chance of these 23mm guns actually hitting him. And he's going to try to come up and shoot up into his belly, which in this situation is the ideal way to take out an IL-28. But look at how far the IL-28 tail guns can actually point down. Here he comes, and he's managed to get away with it. The tail guns are not firing, he must be reloading. Hans is in a dive, building up some speed. He's easily going to exceed 800 kilometers per hour here, but he has to be careful. So far he's lucky, he hasn't taken any airframe damage. If you take airframe damage and you push the red line on the speed indicator like this in realistic battle, well, you're going to lose parts of your airframe. You're going to wreck the aircraft in exactly the same way that I suspect happened to the Vampire earlier. But where's the Meteor? That's the big question. The Meteor's probably had time to make it back to its airfield by now. Oh, and there's flak coming up. It would be kind of an anticlimax if he got taken out by flak right now, wouldn't it? I mean, that would really suck. But here comes the Banshee again. And he's trying the same tactics, but this time Hans is lower than he was before. He dived to gain some speed to get away from that initial engagement with the Banshee. So the Banshee is closer and more liable to get hit by the tail guns while he's trying to sneak underneath them and then pull up into a climb in order to rake his underbelly with cannon fire. Is he going to hit him? He's certainly close enough. He brings the nose up to ensure that he can continue firing with the tail turret. Come on, Hans. And he's hit him. He's hit his tail. He's done some damage. He's got to start manoeuvring now, though. The Banshee's getting awfully close. There it comes. Oh, he's hit, but it's nothing critical. It doesn't appear to be anything critical. I think he's gotten away with it. He's gotten away with it. That Meteor's got to be coming back by now, however. He's going to have to... What do you do in a situation like this? I mean, he's trying to head back to his friendly airbase, but trying to land this thing would be suicide. He can't outrun his pursuers. He's fast, but he's not fast enough. I mean, he can outrun a Vampire, no problem, but he can't outrun the Banshee. You've just seen that enemy Banshee on 2 separate occasions get below him and catch up with him and then pull up and shoot into his underbelly. You can't keep doing this forever. You're never going to make it back to the airfield. They would catch you on the ground and it would be game over. So instead, he's given up trying to head back to home, and now he's turned it around and he's heading in the direction of the enemy airfield. Don't forget, the IL-28 does have 2 23mm cannons mounted in the nose as well, and they're controlled by the pilot. So is he trying to head back and engage the Meteor? Is he hoping to catch the Meteor on the ground while he's rearming? If he is, he's left it a little bit too late. I mean, he didn't have much of an option because he was being engaged by a Banshee at the time. But he's not going to catch the Meteor on the ground. And he's still got that Banshee to worry about. The Banshee has actually managed to get in front of him. There he is. Remember, twin 23mm cannons in the nose of this thing. He's going to have to start using them. Banshee comes in. He opens up. The Banshee isn't shooting. The Banshee does not fire. Tail guns open up on the Banshee and misses. Why did the Banshee not fire at him? It looked like a good approach. I can only assume that the Banshee was out of ammunition. But if he's out of ammunition, why is he still flying around? Surely he should be heading back to the airfield in order to rearm. It's possible, of course, that the Banshee is keeping Hans spotted so the Meteor can get here and finish him off. But then again, if all you're doing is hanging around and keeping an aircraft spotted so that the rest of your team can get here and kill him, why would you take a risk like that in a head-on approach and almost get yourself shot down when all you have to do is keep the enemy in visual range? There is, of course, another possibility. The Banshee tried to ram him. It wouldn't be surprising, and if that is what he tried to do, I'm not criticising the Banshee pilot here for it. It's a tactical ram. There's 2 aircraft left on your team, 1 enemy aircraft, you're out of ammunition, ram him and you win the game. I've seen it done before, and it's certainly a valid tactic in this kind of circumstance. But valid tactic or not, I don't think that's what the Banshee was trying to do, because if you go back and watch the moment when the 2 aircraft passed each other, the Banshee dropped down and flew below him at the last moment. So maybe the Banshee didn't realise he was out of ammunition. until he got close enough to pull the trigger. It's certainly possible. I may have even done it myself. I may have done it myself. There's no video evidence. But still, at the same time, where the hell's that meteor? Oh, hold on. Somebody behind him. Was that the Banshee? You know, I've lost track. Nope, it's the meteor. Yeah, it looks like he was trying to keep him spotted for the meteor. The meteor is now on his tail, and he is no longer billowing smoke from his engines. Fully armed, fully repaired, and fully fueled, and probably very, very anxious to avoid looking like a complete chump on YouTube as his entire team gets shot down by a lone surviving enemy bomber. We wouldn't want that, would we? But where did he go? See, the problem here, Hans has lost sight of his pursuers because they're both in the sun behind him, and there's just too much glare for him to pick out a target in the sky. They're not even on the map anymore. So, well, he makes a very risky decision here. He pulls up, he starts gaining some altitude. Now, if there's anybody above and behind him right now, he's just made himself a perfect target for them. He's losing speed, and he's presenting a broader cross-section for them to shoot at. Not only that, but his biggest asset, his tail gunner, would have had a bugger of a time pointing the guns straight up at a target diving from above, but he's gotten away with it. The meteor was far enough away, and he was going fast enough, that he managed to gain some altitude and turn the aircraft around without being attacked. But this presents its own problems, because he's turning his aircraft around to face his pursuers, and that means facing directly into the sun. They are going to see him long before he sees them, and that of course gives them the advantage. Of course, they have to actually take that advantage, and the meteor just doesn't want to fight him. What are you doing up there? That Banshee has got to be getting so frustrated. He must be kicking himself that he hasn't flown back to his own airbase, stopped, landed, rearmed and come back after him. What's the meteor doing? How much of an advantage do you need? The meteor's fast enough in level flight that he can keep that altitude while Hans is turning around here to try to get a bead on the Banshee, which is why he's actually manoeuvring like this. The Banshee's coming in again. He's going to try to nail him with his front 23mm cannons. But where's the meteor going? There goes the Banshee. What the Banshee is doing here, because he is out of ammunition, is he's deliberately putting himself in harm's way to take the attention of Hans's guns to give the meteor a clear attack run at Hans's aircraft. Every time Hans pulls up like that to get his tail gunners a good solid burst at that Banshee, he's losing speed. And he's making himself a broader cross-section target for the meteor to shoot at, but the meteor is just too slow. Well, the meteor isn't too slow, but the pilot of the meteor is too slow. There you go, perfect opportunity, set up perfectly by the Banshee, completely blew it, and he's just made another victim out of himself. That's Hans's third air-to-air kill. He's in a bomber. He's shot down half of the enemy team, and they're in jet fighters. In fact, he's the only player on his team to shoot down any enemy aircraft. The LA-15 didn't shoot anybody down. Neither of the MiG-9s shot anybody down. And now the Banshee, well, he's got to be kicking himself. Why did he not go back and rearm when he had the opportunity? When he made that first pass with no ammunition, while the meteor was on the airfield, while he was rearming and getting ready to come back. Why did he hang around, keeping Hans spotted for that donkey of a meteor pilot? I'd give anything to see the enemy team chat right now. What's the Banshee going to do? He's right out of options. He can go back to base and rearm, and then there's no guarantee he's going to find Hans again, or he can try to ram him. But that's going to be risky because he's in an Ilyushin 28, and he can do 800 kilometers per hour, and the only way you're going to approach him is from behind. And his tail gunners are going to have a word or two to say about that. And even if he does manage to ram him, let's say he does manage to avoid fire from Hans's tail gunner, and he does manage to ram him and knock him out of the sky, well, then you're both dead. And I'm not entirely sure what happens then, but, well, Hans's team has a lot more tickets. So, yeah. Oh, there he is. What's he going to do? Hans opens up. There he is. You've got to feel sorry for this Banshee pilot. I mean, he did pretty much everything right. And he came the closest of anybody on his team to putting Hans down. Well, he did those attacks from below earlier on. And, yeah, well, them's the breaks, I suppose. Hans has shot down 4 enemy jet fighters. 2 enemy jet fighters crashed. And he single-handedly won the game for his team in an Ilyushin 28 twin jet-engined medium bomber. I mean, it's a good aircraft, but it's not that good. I mean, I think the enemy team have to hang their heads in shame after this performance. And that's certainly one that I think Hans is going to be remembering for some time to come. And hopefully you guys will as well. And hopefully you enjoyed the video, because that's it for me today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.